Ever wonder what people were eating during your first day on Earth? From 1970 to past the turn of the millennium, these are the dishes that made massive impacts over the years. In 1970, the mighty quiche made a massive splash in the culinary world, dominating restaurant menus and thrilling home cooks with its delectable blend of vegetables, meats, and cheeses. As the ultimate savory pie, quiche is as versatile as it is delicious. At its core, it's a homemade or store-bought crust filled to the brim with cream, egg, and spice mixture mixed with anything you have on hand. From standard faves like quiche Lorraine to inventive concoctions featuring leftovers and brilliant blends of different cheeses, making quiche is a great way to clear out your pantry and put a hot meal on the table in less than an hour. You can also enjoy quiche hot or cold, and it's great any time of day. With its simplicity, flexibility, and overall deliciousness, it's no surprise that quiche rocketed to stardom in the 70s and is still the darling of the brunch scene today. Gordon Ramsay might have revived beef Wellington on Hell's Kitchen, but this flaky, mushroomy, beefy wonder has been wildly popular since the swinging 70s. 1971 was the year of beef Wellington, according to Bon Appetit. It's one of the most comforting foods on the planet, a perfectly cooked cut of beef covered in either mushroom or chicken liver pâté and wrapped in a crunchy pastry sheet. As much about presentation as it is about taste, the ideal beef Wellington looks neat and uniform from the outside and can be decorated with various pastry designs for extra effect. Inside, you have medium rare steak and a tasty outer layer. Every bite is full of pastry crunch and meaty goodness, amplified by a generous drizzle of gravy. Accompanied by mashed potatoes, beef Wellington is a next-level superstar of a dish. Back in the 1970s, no swanky dinner party was complete without a vast communal pot of molten cheese, tons of dippers, and long fondue forks to create the perfect meal. Fondue was a hugely popular food trend that paired the ultimate comfort foods, bread and cheese, with the interactive fun of dipping and swirling. As time went on, fondue went from being a solely savory item to taking center stage as a dessert. These days, you'll often find towering chocolate fondue fountains surrounded by marshmallows, fruit, and graham crackers at weddings and other celebrations.
That is good fondue.
According to the Daily Meal, our fondness for traditional cheese fondue has fallen off somewhat, but there's no reason not to revive this retro dinner tradition. You can use any melty cheese as your base, or even a blend of several. Swiss cheese is best if you want to go true old school and traditional. Long before hipsters reinvigorated our love for all things pickled and preserved, home cooks in the early 1970s were discovering the joys of pickling, preserving, and canning in their own kitchens. 1973 was the year of homemade preserves, and everything was popped into an airtight mason jar, including sweet, tangy, and super spicy mixtures of fruits and vegetables. The economical trend led to home cooks creating inventive side dishes, condiments, and spreads. Preserving is an excellent way to show off your cooking chops, save a few bucks, and even prepare some delicious gifts to share with family and friends. While preserves are decidedly old school in an era where it's easy to buy fresh produce year-round, the practice shows no signs of slowing down, at least not as long as people love customizing and creating their own food blends in the kitchen. Some might question whether a humble vegetable can change cake as we know it forever. To those people, consider the carrot cake. While carrot desserts have been cooked in America since the 1700s, carrot cake became popular in American kitchens in the 1960s and became a true food fad in the 1970s. America's greater attention to diet and nutrition might have had something to do with carrot cake's rise, although we can't say that it's a good choice for getting your daily allotment of veggies. Carrot cake may have plenty of shredded vegetables in it, but it's still a cake with a thick, dense layer of cream cheese on top. It's also a decadent treat that typically features nuts and raisins as well. This cake is also full of warm spices like ginger and cinnamon, making it ideal for fall-time snacking. Salad bars hit big right on the heels of carrot cake, bringing the health-conscious vibe of the 1970s into clear focus. Salad bars started popping up in restaurants in the mid-70s, giving consumers the twin allure of customizable salads and convenience. As the decade wore on, even chain restaurants like Wendy's opened up salad bars. After that, you could barely step into any eatery without seeing a cool long display of different fruits, veggies, toppings, and dressings. Salad bars not only gave consumers the ability to pick and choose their ingredients, but also opened up diners to new vegetables that they might have been too shy to order or unaware of. Premium items like tiny baby corn, bamboo, and crunchy bean sprouts started showing up in restaurants. Some salad bars offered more off-the-wall toppings like ginger alongside sliced cucumber, carrots, and tomatoes. Of course, there were also vats of dressing to top salad with, packing on the flavor. Although chicken Kiev is considered a fun, retro throwback today, it was the height of sophistication in the 1970s. It was once the pinnacle of fine dining until it was reinvented and downgraded by frozen food giants eager to bring it to dining room tables in 5 minutes or less. Chicken Kiev's tasty success is the result of classic ingredients, plenty of butter, and a crispy exterior. It's a stuffed chicken dish that you can customize or upgrade as much as you'd like. Although different restaurants had various spins on this iconic dish, the core of it is a thin chicken breast wrapped around a core of garlic and herb butter, then battered and fried until golden brown and crispy. Served with a swirl of potato puree and a light vegetable medley, chicken Kiev was everything in the 1970s. Pasta primavera is another one of those dishes that we in the present might associate with the frozen food section. But back in the late 1970s, it was a fresh, bright, high-end dish that people ordered in droves. As the New York Times recalled, Le Cirque's original spaghetti primavera was a bright, springtime pasta with carefully selected vegetables. But that restaurant's high-end original spawned many bad imitators. This controversial dish probably gets as much flack as it does because home cooks and restaurants use any leftover veggies and pasta they have on hand. However, pasta primavera can absolutely sing when done right, even though it's a time-consuming dish to nail. As reported in that same article, today's chefs make variations to the humble dish, adding in interesting produce like radishes in place of traditional mushrooms, or even putting an Asian fusion spin on it with miso paste. The result is something that tastes fresh and familiar, but still upgraded.
How's everything?
Really good.
This pasta primavera is fabulous.
Very tasty.
While much of the 1970s was focused on health food, there were some fads that went in a slightly different direction. Buffalo wings, the brainchild of Anchor Bar restaurateur Teresa Bellissimo, branched out beyond the Rust Belt city of Buffalo, New York, and hit the mainstream during the decade. Classic buffalo-style wings are deep-fried to perfection, tossed in butter and hot sauce, and served with carrot and celery sticks. Although different places around the U.S. put their own spin on wings, the most traditional way to serve and eat them is with a big cup of chunky, creamy blue cheese dressing. Today, you can find buffalo wings in any corner of the country, although true fans should try to make a trip to their hometown at some point in order to experience the real deal. Although France is generally credited with bringing the world flaky, tasty croissants, these decadent breakfast pastries are actually Austrian. Their standard shape is a reference to Turkey's crescent flag and commemorates the Austrian effort to liberate Vienna from Ottoman invaders. This versatile pastry can be sweet or savory and dressed up and down in many different fashions. With a flaky, buttery interior and an easy-to-eat size, it's no wonder that croissants caught on in the United States at the end of the 1970s. Once they arrived, they never left, and these days, you can find croissants reimagined as fast food breakfast sandwiches and donuts. There's something very chic about croissants, and they're undeniably delicious to boot. They're also labor-intensive, making them an indulgent treat worthy of some homemade preserves. Although we have commercial croissants today, there's nothing quite like feasting on the real thing from your local bakery. You can also make them at home if you have the patience and time for such an endeavor. What chicken Kiev was to the mid-70s, chicken Francese was to 1980. Although the name would make you think it's French, this dish is actually an Italian-American classic. Breaded, fried cutlets are a staple of Italian cuisine, but the lemony sauce that turns a simple cutlet into chicken Francese appears to be a 20th century American innovation. If you want a taste of 1980 at home, you can cook chicken Francese at home with a tried-and-true combo of citrus, butter, and perfectly cooked chicken. Add in a crispy crust and a light aromatic white wine sauce, and you have a recipe fit for company that requires just a small amount of time to make. 1981 introduced a previously unknown fruit to America and catapulted it to breakfast stardom. Kiwi is a highly nutritious fruit with a tart and tropical taste. Although the standard methodology of kiwi eating includes peeling the fruit and cutting it into small rounds, it can be prepared any number of ways. According to Boston Magazine, kiwi was the hottest healthy fruit trend of 1981, with kiwi rounds gracing both savory and sweet dishes. Unlike some other food trends and fads, kiwi stands the test of time. It's packed with tons of vitamin C and fiber, plus plenty of antioxidants, making it a solid, healthy choice. Thankfully, you can get your hands on fresh or frozen kiwi virtually any time of the year. Pick some up for a smoothie, or stir chunks of kiwi into your morning yogurt for a tart and tasty pick-me-up.
Try the kiwi fruit. Delicious.
If you were having a dinner party in the 1980s, you certainly broke out the Viennetta afterward. This for company-only dessert that debuted in 1982 was the designer ice cream that graced every holiday table and family get-together during the first few years of the 1980s, and it still has a cult following today. Viennetta might have just been ice cream and chocolate, but the design and shape transformed it into an intricate dessert with plenty of wow factor. As such, 80s kids knew much better than to scoop their grubby fingers into a chilled box of Viennetta, lest they invoke the wrath of their parents. Although Viennetta might be associated with the 80s, there's still something magical about those classic classic waves of vanilla ice cream and a gentle spray of chocolate decoration on top, not to mention the oohs and ahs of fanfare as the Viennetta came to the table. The early 1980s were the heyday of summery pasta salad. The key was its versatility. No matter what ingredients you had in your fridge, there was bound to be something that could make your pasta salad sing. Home cooks could fuse together flavors from different cuisines to create sumptuous signature salads. Pasta salad requires starchy pasta, plenty of dressing, and enough veggies to break up the mass of pasta itself. Today, pasta salads are still on the menu at summertime cookouts and gatherings all over the country. They can typically be thrown together with ingredients found in the average pantry, making them reasonably priced options that offer plenty of possibilities, or should we say, pastabilities. Although baked potatoes are still and probably always will be popular, the 80s took things to an amazing new level with loaded baked potatoes and potato skins. It was during this decade that baked potatoes with all of the fixings appeared on menus in both high-end restaurants and fast food joints. Classical toppings like chili, cheese, and sour cream mingled with more obscure and tasty offerings like chicken a la king. Everyone was giving their potatoes some serious glow-ups, and then the potato skin craze came. Potato skins soon became a bar food staple. Their best asset is their texture. The crispy skin mingles together with the thin layer of creamy potato, gooey cheese, and crisp bacon bits, topped with just the tiniest sprinkle of green onion for a true feast of flavors. Order them up at your favorite watering hole, or make them at home to be exactly to your liking.
Okay, overstuffed potato skins.
Hey, we didn't make fun of you.
Please.
Although wine coolers' time in the sun was somewhat brief, they sure did burn bright while they were popular. Combining fruity, summery flavors with various types of white wines for portion-controlled, bright-colored beverages, big names like Seagram's quickly came to dominate the expanding wine cooler scene. By the mid-80s, these sweet drinks had managed to capture a significant portion of the U.S. wine market. However, a change to the tax code in 1991 made wine coolers less profitable for beverage companies to sell, and they became much less popular as a result. In more recent days, wine coolers have been making a serious comeback. Canned individual servings of wine are popular, and big names like Bartles and James are relaunching and rebranding their wine coolers to appeal to a whole new generation. With so much nostalgia for the 1980s these days, it's hardly a surprise. Maybe Bartles and James will relaunch its pina colada or fuzzy navel flavors again for a fun and classic throwback.
Have you been drinking?
I'm glad I had a wine cooler or two.
As reported in the Washington Post, microwave popcorn was the snack du jour of American families in 1986. It was the most convenient method for bringing the movie theater experience into the comfort of your living room. It helped that there were tons of different varieties to choose from extra butter to cheddar cheese and sour cream and onion. The 80s was a decade full of innovation in the microwave popcorn space. Most notably, the decade saw manufacturers first introduce heat susceptors, the metallic strips embedded into microwave popcorn bags that help heat up the kernels. It wasn't long before most microwaves had dedicated popcorn buttons, although most popcorn companies will tell you not to use it. As long as you keep an eye and ear out to keep it from charring, the microwave is still the easiest place to prepare popcorn today, assuming you don't have a dedicated machine like the ones in movie theaters. A huge food fad of the 1980s was chicken fried steak. This dish initially caught on big in Texas in the 1960s and 1970s, but it was huge in the 80s, expanding far past the borders of the Lone Star State. It's easy to understand the appeal of chicken fried steak. You take a thin piece of tender steak, coat it in egg and batter, and then toss it in a piping hot pan until it's perfectly fried all around. Served with a generous pile of creamy mashed potatoes and pan gravy, CFS is a stick-to-your-ribs meal with tremendous textures and flavors. Chicken fried steak shares some commonalities with foods like schnitzel or fried pork chops. It's no wonder that it was and continues to be a true comfort food. You can still find it at diners across the South and Midwest, or you can make it at home. Oat bran is rich in fiber, but its taste can leave a little to be desired. That's why the oat bran muffin was such a game changer. According to the New York Times, oat bran muffins were flying off bakery shelves near the end of the 1980s. Customers loved their comparatively good taste and myriad health benefits. The Times compared the meteoric rise of bran muffins to the croissant craze a decade earlier. It's fairly easy to understand oat bran muffins' appeal. They're convenient, healthy pastries you can smear a little butter on and have with your morning coffee. Oat bran muffins also predated a lot of the get-healthy quick fads of the 1990s, making them a very suitable food for closing out the 80s and ushering in the new decade. Today, you can still find oat bran muffins just about everywhere, although they're not seen as quite the magic bullet solution for good health that they once were. Caesar salad was always on the menu at the end of the 1980s, either for a tasty lunch or as an appetizer before a big meal. Whether featuring sliced roasted chicken, anchovies, or additional veggies, the combination of tangy, creamy dressing, plenty of shaved Parmesan cheese, croutons, and crisp lettuce has always been the same. As reported by the New York Times, Caesar salad was so popular at the beginning of the 1990s that bottled dressings were flying off the shelves. Variations on the theme were popping up everywhere, but Caesar salads were popular in restaurants a few years before they hit the kitchen table mainstream. According to the Washington Post, the Marriott put the Caesar on its nationwide menu in 1985, and a few years later, it was everywhere.
You want me to help? I make a mean Caesar salad. I'm just kidding.
The key to Caesar salad is simplicity. You need high-quality lettuce, fresh cold dressing, plenty of tasty Parmesan, and big old crusty homemade croutons to make the dish sing. There's something dramatic and special about slicing your spoon into a dense molten lava cake with a liquid center. Maybe that's why this luxurious dessert was everywhere in the early days of the 1990s, perhaps served alongside a small sphere of premium vanilla ice cream and crowned with a bit of extra chocolate sauce for good measure. Molten lava cake takes all the best parts of a soufflé and pudding and puts them together in a symphony of textures and rich chocolate flavors. Despite its flashy presentation, lava cake is also relatively easy to make at home. All you need are some simple pantry ingredients, individual ramekins, and a close eye on the oven timer.
You take a frozen cylinder of ganache and you set it in the ramekin so that as the outside cooks fully, the inside becomes molten.
Although classic versions of the cake call for chocolate and vanilla flavoring, you can add a little pizzazz with orange liqueur or a few artfully placed raspberries on the plate. Coming fast on the heels of molten lava cake, crème brûlée delighted countless people in the early 1990s with its combination of creamy, soft custard and deliciously brittle sugar topping. The trick is to crack the sugar and get a nice mouthful of pudding, plus shards from the top. People found the combination delightful and unexpected, and every five-star restaurant worth its salt had its own take on the crème brûlée. Although crème brûlée might be the most decadent, flavor-rich dessert that you've ever tasted, the process of making it is relatively straightforward and uses common pantry ingredients. You just need eggs, cream, vanilla, and sugar for the pudding base, plus a little extra sugar to sprinkle on the top. True chefs know that the best way to get that tasty, perfect, caramelized sugar sear is with a blowtorch. Just make sure to keep a close eye on the technique to perfect your delicious dessert. Although the first veggie burgers were dreamt up in a humble London restaurant called Seed that catered to famous folks like Yoko Ono and John Lennon, they didn't go commercial until quite some time later. According to the Smithsonian, veggie burgers hit the mainstream in the early part of the 1990s, with the Garden Burger debuting in 1992 and the Boca Burger Company coming into existence in 1993. While vegetarian selections in the 80s and 90s were limited, the humble veggie burger found its footing and gave way to supermarket shelves full of options. It's no longer fringe to be meat-free, and vegetarians and vegans alike can rest assured that something yummy is usually on the menu for them too. Although sushi was available in plenty of specialty restaurants from coast to coast as early as the 1970s and 1980s, people really started to dig into the Japanese staple in the 1990s. All at once, sushi was a global phenomenon, gracing boutique restaurants all over the planet. Robert De Niro opened a sushi restaurant in the 1990s, and by the middle of the decade, it was fully mainstream. Supermarkets started selling ready-made sushi alongside more familiar fare. Bite-sized sushi rolls offered skeptical diners a way to expand their palates without a lot of commitment and let them feel cool while doing so. Since there are so many different types of sushi, including vegetarian and cooked varieties, nobody gets left out, and you can get as off-the-wall with your flavor choices as you might want. Although there's something special about restaurant-grade sushi, you can also make it at home if you know the proper techniques. 1994 was the year that we decided that the magic solution to our weight loss woes was low-fat or even no-fat versions of all our favorite junk foods. While low-fat sweets like Snackwells didn't solve our problems, they were still the snacks of choice for the mid-90s. The total opposite of later fad diets like Atkins and keto. Instead of believing that carbs were the devil, like the diets of the early aughts, the low-fat doctrine said that carbs were good, but fat was evil. As the decade concluded, everyone was forced to reckon with the fact that low-fat or no-fat didn't necessarily mean good, and a healthy diet and lifestyle are the only two things guaranteed to help you look your best. Still, there's something nostalgically hopeful about ripping into a big old box of Snackwells cookies, and they remain a coveted classic in many circles. In the mid-90s, there was one dominant food trend on restaurant menus all over the country. Sun-dried tomatoes ruled the middle of the decade, and chefs used these concentrated gems of tomato flavor in almost every combination they could think of. From salads to pastas to appetizer trays, sun-dried tomatoes were inescapable. Although you might not find them on every restaurant menu these days, sun-dried tomatoes aren't going anywhere anytime soon. They still elevate any dish and lend a deep, layered summertime flavor to your favorite dishes. You can even make them at home by liberally salting halved grape or cherry tomatoes and letting them cure and dry in the sun. Alternately, pick up a jar at almost any supermarket in the country and experiment with their delightful flavor yourself. If you went to any swanky party during the 1990s, one food was always on the menu: baked brie. Baked brie's appeal is undeniable, and it stood the test of time. Brie is a surprisingly flexible cheese, pairing well with lightly spiced crostini or various slices of fruit. Although it's very tasty cold, baking it transforms it into a heavenly, gooey, delicious, and buttery wheel of premium cheese that folks in the 90s simply couldn't get enough of. As recalled by Eat This, Not That, many gourmands weren't just satisfied with roasting up a giant wheel of brie. Instead, these intrepid cooks would wrap their brie up in flaky pastry, adding another level of texture and flavor to the dish. It's a delicious combination, one that we'd love to see return to fancy parties. Crab cakes have been around for ages, but they got new life in 1997, taking center stage on restaurant menus all over the country. Crab cakes have a standard composition of eggs, crab, breadcrumbs, and spices, but they can also be embellished with clever sauces or even used for sandwiches. Since crab cakes are relatively easy to make, home cooks can perfect the recipe as long as they have good lump crab on hand and a few basic pantry staples. As the 1990s wore on, restaurant chefs started to diverge from classic ingredients and incorporate other flavors like orange, caper, corn, or lobster into their crab cakes. This led to a furious discussion about whether crab cakes should remain Spartan in their ingredients or branch out into other flavor profiles to stand out. Ultimately, both traditional and non-traditional crab cakes ruled the day, and both varieties of the dish are still offered in restaurants today.
Hey, are those crab cakes? Did I not tell you to come straight to me when more crab cakes were ready?
The late 1990s were the years of the bagel, which dominated all other crusty breads and breakfast foods as the ultimate portable and carb-rich meal. Bagel shops proliferated all around the country, serving dazzling arrays of different styles and sandwiches until the bubble burst around the turn of the millennium. However, even if we're not as bananas for bagels as we once were, you can still get a toasted bagel piled high with sandwich meat or a hearty smear of cream cheese just about anywhere in the country. Today, bagels are still popular, with the everything bagel coming out as the reigning flavor in places like New York City. Fortunately, you don't have to visit the Big Apple to try them, as it's much easier than it looks to make them at home. The end of the 1990s will always be known for one thing: the Cosmopolitan. This fruity, tart, and citrusy drink was popularized by Carrie Bradshaw and her friends in Sex and the City, and soon hit its peak in bar scenes across the country. The Cosmopolitan, or Cosmo as Carrie and her friends often called it, was the must-have accessory for any trendy woman in the know. It also helps that Cosmos are both tasty and attractive, with a sweet and sour flavor and a deep pink hue, completed with a fruity garnish.
Yes, I'd like a cheeseburger, please, large fries, and a Cosmopolitan.
What? A refreshing alternative to martinis, Cosmos are served up in standard triangular glasses for sophisticated sips that won't give you olive breath. Although the Cosmos star has fallen a bit, you can still order it virtually anywhere or even make it at home with Cointreau, citrus vodka, cranberry juice, and lime to taste. The dawn of the new millennium ushered in all sorts of exciting changes and shook up the culinary world. One key example was tuna tartare, a delicately seasoned and chopped mixture of raw tuna. Tuna tartare was the benchmark of haute cuisine, with inventive chefs coming up with citrusy or Asian-inspired recipes to showcase the premium fish in the best possible way. While tuna tartare was the appetizer of choice for top restaurants, you don't need to be a 5-star chef to make it. In fact, you can create it in your own kitchen. Gordon Ramsay's tuna tartare recipe is an inventive spin on the classic dish, and it's pretty easy to put together with the right ingredients. Serve it at your next dinner party, delight your friends, and prepare to kick it like it's 2000. Sex and the City wasn't content with merely popularizing the Cosmo, as an episode of the show featuring New York's Magnolia Bakery gave viewers serious cupcake fever. After millions of people watched Carrie and Miranda chow down on picture-perfect handheld snacks, cupcakes became the trendiest things you could find behind the glass at a pastry shop. People started thinking of cupcakes as gourmet desserts rather than something served for a birthday party in primary school. It makes perfect sense. After all, cupcakes are portion-controlled delights with an ideal ratio of frosting to cake. With flavors that range from the tried and true to the undeniably gourmet and whimsical, it's impossible not to find a cupcake concoction that fits your personal taste preferences. While our love affair with cupcakes has waned slightly, there are still plenty of bakeries churning out these petite treats. The irreplaceable combination of macaroni and cheese has been a staple for ages, but the meal had its moment in the sun in the early 2000s. It was a good time for Kraft Foods, as 1 million or so boxes of their famous mac and cheese flew off American grocery store shelves daily. The Herald Tribune declared it the ultimate comfort food. While Kraft's boxed mac is a favorite of kids and college students, mac and cheese is a dish with room to grow. Piles of carb-rich pasta, plenty of molten gooey cheeses, and a light sprinkle of breadcrumbs or panko can be combined with bacon bits, buffalo chicken, chicken, vegetables, and for the truly decadent, lobster. Whether you like your mac and cheese baked or stirred up on the stovetop, it's the ultimate satisfying treat that you won't want to share. While the 1990s had low fat, the early aughts embraced low-carb diets designed to whittle away at people's waistlines. As with today's keto craze, low-carb options promised devotees that they could shed the pounds by simply eliminating or cutting way back on carbohydrates. The Atkins diet, one of the more popular manifestations of low-carb eating, was a way for people to eat pounds of bacon and burgers as long as they left the buns at home. Although low-carb eating delivered results initially, people found that the weight piled right back on as soon as they started eating grains again. After Atkins, gentler low-carb diets like the South Beach diet gained popularity, allowing people to eat a much bigger range of foods and not totally demonizing the humble carb. Today, the ultra-low-carb keto diet is popular, although many people experience adverse side effects like the so-called keto flu. The new millennium was matcha's time to shine. Matcha, an ancient Chinese powdered tea, had been popular in Japan for years, but became widely ubiquitous in the early aughts. It made its way across the pond soon after it became available for purchase in trendy New York City cafes. Matcha's rise as the preferred powder of tastemakers likely relates to its superfood status and its vibrant green color. It's beautiful, delicious, and the perfect counterbalance to heavier desserts. Matcha's sweet and slightly nutty taste was everywhere and still is. Today, this once obscure flavoring is totally mainstream. You can get matcha lattes and teas at Starbucks, matcha crepes, ice creams, and cakes at bakeries. Of course, you can buy matcha powder on its own to make infinite emerald-hued creations from the comfort of your own kitchen. Although frozen yogurt has been around for ages, it got new life in the early 2000s thanks to designer froyo joints like Pinkberry and Red Mango. As a New York Times article recalled, frozen yogurt boomed in Greenwich Village during the beginning of the decade, feeding hungry New Yorkers towering cups of the good stuff, and the trend is still going strong. Frozen yogurt is a healthier alternative to ice cream, and with tons of different flavors and toppings, you can dress it up or down as much as you want. Frozen yogurt has good-for-you bacteria and might promote internal health, making it a smarter alternative to fat-laden, sugary ice cream. It's also a more sophisticated icy treat, a grown-up answer to the seductive siren song of the ice cream truck. That's probably one of the top reasons why the frozen yogurt bubble shows absolutely no signs of bursting 20 years after it went mainstream.